Hello, everybody, and welcome to the afternoon tune. I'm your host, Josh, and with me, I don't know. I think as a past point now, I don't know, special guest. You've been on so much now, Sage. You know what I mean? Special guest star. You know what I mean? I've pretty much joined the regular cast now. I would say pretty much been on enough times there. Recurring cast member. You've earned stepped up above there now.
Hell yeah.
I would say there. But Sage from Rated M for Immaturity. How's it going there, Sage?
Hey, doing great, man. Doing great. How are you? How about yourself?
Very good. Got some good reviews on the deck for today. Then after that, I got some good news to discuss in here. Warner Brothers, some breaking news. They're falling apart, seems like. Who even knows if that, I don't know. Is that going to spell trouble for the DC U there? James Gunn, that
It could.
universe, is that still going to go through? Bad stuff for the video game division going on with Warner Brothers right now. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Yeah, good stream. Got some good reviews, good news to discuss. Then afterwards, of course, we're gonna be raiding somebody, some good people we can raid after this. Meaty Portable's on right now, watching AEW, watching that good wrestling. She's a wrestling content creator. We've rated her many times before. Jason Society's on right now, political streamer there. Very good guy. Just recently followed him. Yeah, so got some good people. But if you had any suggestions or anybody in the chat any suggestions, please let me know. And I'll go ahead and give them a raid there. But Sage, let people know about you, what you got going on, upcoming streams, all that good stuff.
Yeah. You can find me over at Rated M for Immaturity on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, all under that same name. Uh, we just started playing Gollum, the masterpiece from last year. Just yesterday. We'll be doing that for a couple of Tuesdays here. Um, wow, am I blown away by how truly terrible that game is. Trust me, nobody undersold how bad it was. Um, it's a disaster. But yeah, we doing that on our Tuesdays, about 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time right now. We're also going to be doing a special stream later this month. I believe on Saturday the 24th for the launch of Black Myth Wukong, which is going to be super exciting, I think. Otherwise, we have regular shows Saturday nights about 10:30 p.m. CST, and every other Friday around 7 p.m. CST.
Yes, Black Myth, 13 days till Black Myth Wukong there. August 20th is when it's coming out there. So you're going to do a special stream for that as soon as it drops. So make sure.
It won't be the Tuesday because it comes out on Tuesday the 20th, but the Saturday that week we'll be doing a little something for it.
Okay, very cool there. Does it release early for people who pre-ordered it or?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's like 11 p.m. the night before, so Monday the 19th, I think, like at 11 p.m. will be when it's available to play. At
Okay.
least I guess there is only a digital version of it. Unfortunately, there will be a physical release like sometime later, but at least at launch, it's digital only.
Okay. And this is your YouTube right here where people can see the streams that you did here. Nice good archive here. Got the Gollum game here, got the Samurai Jack game. You have the takeovers there hosted by Tim, where he usually plays Boulder Gate right there. Very nice there. So you got all that good content all up there on YouTube. All that good
I don't
stuff.
even know how many games we've worked our way through at this point.
That's nice. Do you have any playlists set up? People could just watch
Yeah,
you
yeah,
play.
you can go
Okay.
right to a playlist there. See
Okay.
each game.
Very nice. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, you can see all these games that they've done there. When did you start this channel?
I believe it was the day after my birthday, so April 24th of 2021. Fresh.
This one was the first one you have here. It says Demon Souls.
Yeah, yeah, Demon Souls. It was that was one of the Demon Souls remake was one of the launch titles for the PlayStation 5. So it was me and Tim doing the rapid respawn. Hadn't come up with that name at the time yet, but yeah, working our way through that Demon Souls remake, and then we only just recently finished Elden Ring, and we pretty much played from Demon Souls to Dark Souls to Bloodborne to Sekiro to Elden Ring. Kind of worked our way through every one of those From Software games.
Yeah, very nice. So yeah, people can check you out on YouTube right there. Let's get them to 100 subscribers there. I think 500 you have to start earning there on YouTube.
Okay.
So yeah, let's get them up there. Subs, good content, good guys over there. Rated M for maturity. Always stopping by to help out. Always helping out with these reviews. And what we got on the docket for today, we got Batman Cape Crusader, the new Batman series there that is on Amazon Prime right now. We have also some video game reviews. Sage is going to be doing some retro, one kind of newer. The retro review is going to be for Assassin's Creed Black Flag, since the new Assassin's Creed game is going to be coming out this year in November. That's what's going out.
I think so. Yeah, like mid-November.
Right in mid November there, November 17th, I want to say, is when Assassin's Creed Shadow is going to be coming out. And then, yeah, Nobody Wants to Die, which is a newer game there that's out right now. And he's going to be giving his thoughts and review on that. And then we're going to be doing some news. Warner Brothers there losing a lot of money, TV division there apparently. So a lot of stuff going up on there. What does that mean for the future of the company? Going to be getting into that. This is breaking news. Just kind of stuff
Feels
that.
like we've been hearing that for like the last like 2 or 3 years, honestly.
Yeah, I mean they've been in trouble for a minute now, losing a lot of money. But yeah, so that's all the stuff that we're going to be getting into. Besides the video game, what you been up to there, Sage, with the channel? Just
Oh man, I mean, with the channel, I mean, it's mostly game stuff that we stick to on there. I mean, we have a wide variety of discussions during the game, so people in the chat can kind of come in. We can pretty much talk about any other kind of thing. Doesn't have to be video game related necessarily. But in my own time, I've been watching a lot of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I've finished it, and I'm actually watching it a second time now.
oh, nice. Yeah, we have to put that up for a poll there. We usually do that. We are trying to get through Hunter x Hunter, trying to review all of that, and then after that, I think Berserk is on the table.
Okay,
There's that one. I know Ninja Kasumi. I think it's
Kamui.
Kabui. Is that what it's called? Um,
I think it's Ninja Kamui.
Okay, that one, on Max there. We're gonna review that. I think that was on the docket there to review that. So got a lot of stuff to review. Just been backlogged, doing a lot of these reviews of other stuff there. I've been trying to get to these video game reviews, this news, some of these movies here. And I am gonna be also doing a stream Friday. Dusk is gonna be joining me, doing a review for Borderlands, which is a movie video game adaptation there. And then going to be doing Cuckoo there, starring Hunter Schafer. People
Ooh,
might
that
know
looks cool.
Hunter Schafer from Euphoria. She stars in that show there. Euphoria. She was also just recently in The Kinds of Kindness, also most recently. Saturday, I don't have anything planned for Saturday stream. I don't Sunday I might plan something. Maybe Mike Hedgewood maybe do One Piece, do a review of the first arc of One Piece there. And then also I'm gonna be joining Mike on his channel with also with fellow YouTuber there, Macabre Storytelling. And we're gonna be doing a review for the Planet of the Apes movies there, the newer films there from Matt Reeves and who directed the first one? I always forget who. I think it was
Ooh,
Rupert. I want to say it was
yeah, that's
Rupert
definitely right.
something. Rupert Wyatt. That's who did it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rupert Wyatt. So yeah, the series of movies. Have you seen the new Planet of the Apes movie?
Not yet, but I really, really do want to.
Yes, it's on Hulu right now if people wanted to check it out. It's on, so it is on streaming. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I think it did pretty well at the box office. Let me take a look. I think it did pretty well. I didn't do well as Deadpool and Wolverine, but it did decent there. Let's
It's a high
see.
bar.
It made almost close to 400 million.
That's not
There,
bad.
and then on a budget of let's see, what was the budget on this movie here? 160 million.
Okay.
So about kind of broke even there, a little bit over there. Yeah, so probably did a little bit well.
In today's day, I feel like just not being a flop is kind of an accomplishment.
Yeah. So very nice for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. All right here. Let me pull up my notes for some of this stuff. I'll let you do the video game stuff first there. And we can move on to our Batman Cape Crusader review. And thank you, Rampage. Thanks for the lurk there, man. Much appreciated. All right. Did you want to do Assassin's Creed first here?
Yeah, why not?
All right. So, Sage is going to do a retro review for Assassin's Creed Black Flag. We're reviewing this because Assassin's Creed Shadow is going to be coming out in November later this year.
We
You
can't stop talking about it.
Yeah. Looking forward to the game. You think it's gonna be good? You know.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, I've had issues with Ubisoft that I've talked about a few times on here, where I just there's an open world fatigue that I've got with their games, where it's such a big map and you have so many markers all over the place, and it's a lot of kind of repetitive side missions, and these games end up taking like 100 hours to make your way through, and I'm a little tired of games just being so long. But as far as like what the premise of the story is, the setting, the era that it's taking place in, that I think is all really intriguing. And I think it's the most interesting. It's the most interested I've been in Assassin's Creed since the Origins, which took place in Egypt in 2017. I really liked that one. But since then, I've just been kind of like out of it on that franchise. But well, I've played them. Maybe that's the reason I've been out of it. But I'm like cautiously optimistic. I'm hopeful for this one. I think it's got a lot of promise.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see there. So Sage, what are your thoughts on Assassin's Creed Black Flag? This game came out 11 years ago. About.
Yeah, it was the fall of 2013,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
before the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One consoles launched in the first place. I was, that's right when I was working at GameStop for just a little bit of time there.
Yeah.
It's funny they even, I mean, it's a weird thing that business would do where you could like if you worked there, you could take a copy home, right? Almost like rent it out or check it out.
Mm,
But it was the new copies of the games, and then they'd put them back on the shelf and sell them as new.
mm.
So just a little inside thing for people out there about that. Again, just another one of the many things about GameStop that you might not be a big fan of. But no, did you play this one back in the day yourself as well?
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, this one is. So it was interesting. This franchise was in a weird place when this game came out because people, you know, I think responded pretty positively to the first one, very positively to the second one. Loved the Italian setting with Ezio and all that. And then I'd say pretty positive to Brotherhood, somewhat lukewarm on Revelations. And I think people started to, right around there, we're starting to feel fatigued by this franchise. Like, oh, you're putting one of these out every year at this point. It's starting to get to be a little too much. And people were also like, hey, let's move on from Ezio. All right. You've given this guy 3 games. Let's move on to a new time period. And then 3 came out, which was the American Revolution. And that game was kind of a huge disappointment by most metrics. But it did do one thing that I think most people found pretty memorable. And there was this very kind of cordoned off little section of the game it was kind of a side mission thing, but they introduced this idea of like ship combat. So you'd go and select a mission, and then it just give you this very small sequence. But then that would only be a taste of things to come with the following game, which is Black Flag. And for being kind of a franchise that people were very fatigued and just felt like they'd had too much of, this game came in and completely revitalized the whole series, changing it up to such a degree. Now, there's a lot of gameplay similarities in terms of the melee combat when you're walking around just as the person fighting people, running around it takes place in the Caribbean, right? So Havana, Nassau, some of these places. And you get some of the typical Assassin's Creed gameplay, tailing people from far away, trying not to let them see you, sneaking up, doing your assassinations. And that stuff's all well and good. But this game makes its mark with the ship combat. The open world here is the high seas themselves. And you have your own ship, a very sizable amount of upgrades that you can mess around with, and you can just go pirating. You have so much freedom to move around this world. And when I talk about, recently, I'm very kind of fatigued by open world games and how big and long they can be. This game is the size of game I'm thinking of when I think, could open world games just be here? This is you want to do everything here. It could take you up to 60 hours, and that's not a small amount of time, certainly. But if you want to just play the story, you're looking at like maybe 15 hours. So there's this much nicer sense of pacing and progression that you can go through here. Now I just played this again, revisited it for the first time in 10 years. I landed at about 30, somewhere in like 37, 38 hours, just under 40 for me. So I explored a good amount of this going back to it. And it just reminds me of a time when I was actually really into this franchise. It used to be, one of my favorites, and today it's kind of a up and down thing. But a couple just interesting things I noticed as far as the story here. You're playing as this character that is not an assassin. That's another thing that made this game kind of such a pleasant shift from the previous entries. You're not really an assassin here. You're playing as a pirate who kills an assassin, steals his uniform, and is kind of messing with both the Templars and the assassins throughout the story. Yeah, you might land a little more with the allegiance on the perceived good guys of the series by the end of the whole thing. But you really kind of feel like this was the first time in the whole franchise where it felt like you were playing as a third party to this conflict that all these games are centered around. But fun thing, I don't know if people will remember this, but this main character you're playing as Edward Kenway, this pirate, is voiced by Matt Ryan, who would go on to play Constantine for
Mm.
well, I guess the next 10 years, he's still playing Constantine in animated features. He's popping up in the Crisis on Infinite Earths animated movies that are coming out right now. And I think the Constantine, the live action like NBC show, I want to say that was 2014. So it was only a year after this game. But he's been he was this character, and he's been launched into DC fame for a whole decade at this point. And another casting I want to point out too, because it's about to be a big one. But you interact with a whole bunch of different like historical figures here, right? Assassin's Creed has always played this kind of towed this line between we're going to include a bunch of real history and historical people, but we're going to play around with them and kind of create this fictional narrative around these things. So again, anybody complaining about Shadows, just go play any of the other games and compare it to real history, and it's not going to be a one-to-one for any of them. But you interact with, Blackbeard, right? Edward Teach, Jack Rackham, who famously actually created the Skull and Bones flag. He was the real pirate attributed to that creation. And then Charles Vane, who was another historical pirate, and Ralph Ineson, who's going to be Galactus, popped up as Charles Vane in here, which I was like, oh wow, I didn't remember that at all from playing this 10 years ago. So that was just another fun little actor thing. But yeah, the story here is, I think it's pretty interesting. You kill an assassin, you steal his uniform, you start to get wrapped up and exposed to this conflict. And I guess I should mention this character is the grandfather of the main character from the third game. Yeah, that's the character model there. And I guess you see the character. A lot of these characters popped up in that Black Sail series. I see images from that popping up there as well.
Yep.
Um, but I would compare it to that because that show also had a lot of real people that were in the story, but again, it took a very fictional story and kind of wrapped it around these historical figures. But yeah, so you get involved in this whole conflict, and the whole thing, these games always have some sort of MacGuffin or magic item, right? The Apple of Eden in the first three, but here it's actually a guy that is the MacGuffin. It is someone who is born. They call him a sage in the game. Someone with this ability to tap into some one of these magic artifacts from this precursor civilization, and it's this like gigantic. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, but it's kind of like a looking glass that you'd use to spot other ships on a pirate ship, but one that's hidden away and you could use to spy on anyone, kind of like a modern piece of spy technology. And so it's one of the leftover artifacts from this precursor race, these magical beings. Again, look at that and tell me Shadows is too historically inaccurate for you. But yeah, and so it's kind of all about preventing, to some degree, either side from having full control over this technology. I mean, imagine if some corporation in the time of the golden age of piracy had like, NSA style spyware. They'd be unstoppable, right? As far as just political manipulations go. Um, Yeah, that's a good chunk of what I loved about this the game. I will say, returning to it, there's a little bit of jankiness to certain elements of the gameplay. I think mostly when you're running around on foot, there are some issues. Some big thing I think maybe is even still an issue in Assassin's Creed games is you try and wall run, grab onto something, right, climb up a building, and you'll just grab onto the complete wrong thing and not at all what you're going for. Uh, there's some of the character animation, like the faces. Even at the time, I remember thinking like it's okay, but it's kind of got that Ubisoft face problem where again, not necessarily bad, but they look a little stiff and inexpressive. Despite like the character models being pretty detailed, but just the facial animations are a little stiff. But again, that's small stuff. I wouldn't say that's too big of anything that really hindered my enjoyment of this. Um, I would say the ship combat is what shines here. It's so fun to run around, or not run around, but sail around and take on these other ships, engage in these battles. There's all sorts of just completely not required things you can do here. There's like legendary ships. There's small islands you can sail to, discover like secret items on. There's so many things to discover in this open world. It's just yeah, it reminds me of how good Assassin's Creed can be.
Mm, okay. Um, yeah. So this game came out, you said 11 years ago, over a decade ago there. So it says here about takes around 20 hours to complete the main story, but it can take up to 60 hours to complete everything in the game if you so choose, if you want to 100% it. So you can do that. And Assassin's Creed Black Flag received critical acclaim and became one of the best-selling games of 2013, with over 11 million copies sold as of 2014. Critics praised the open world gameplay, improved naval combat, side quest graphics, narrative characters, and pirate theme there. So he says it's kind of a little janky, a little the running, a little the kind of traversing around the area. The
I
won't.
think it's yeah, I think it's a thing it's present in I think consistently in a lot of the older Assassin's Creed games, and I think it's partially it's a product of them being 10 plus years old. And then but even at the time, like I said, there were things where it's like I'm gonna run up this building, and then it's like oh no, he's grabbing onto this ledge like completely the opposite direction that I was trying to go. And that's something I remember dealing with that back in the day and dealing with it again now. So it's not like a huge slight against the game. It's just a little bit of it. I think my biggest criticism is I think this is the game where, and considering they're still putting out Assassin's Creed games today, this was relatively early in the franchise. So this I think really says something. But this was the game where it really became apparent that it was the modern day portion of this franchise just felt completely pointless. In three, it was kind of this conclusion that they'd been building up to with the present day aspect. Because Assassin's Creed has always had this element of you're playing as this character in modern day. In the original couple games, it was Desmond, voiced by Nolan North of Nathan Drake and Deadpool fame, which we just recently talked about. Um, and you were like kidnapped by this company that was like modern day Templars. They put you into the machine to read your genetic memory, and you like relived the life of your ancestors, right? And in the third game, they conclude that story, in my opinion, in a way that is very poor, and it makes it feel like there was no real reason to have the modern day element at all. It could have easily just been a historical story. But of course, I guess that ties into the precursor race and like the magic artifact part. Um, but they really conclude that element of things in three. So when you get into Black Flag, it's like it's first person and you're like an intern doing video game quality testing at this corporation that's using the Animus to look into people. It feels so contrived to still have this present day part in the game, and it's just not interesting. You're playing as a completely nameless character. You interact with a couple office workers and then like a hacker. None of it's particularly interesting or engaging, at least in my opinion. And to this day, I mean, I played Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Not a huge fan of it, but I played it all the way to the end, and they're still coming up with ways to force this present day storyline in here and to try and find ways to extend it. And so that's something that, like, luckily, you don't spend a ton of time on. Like the majority of the game, you're in the Caribbean, you're sailing on your ship, you're playing as pirates. But every once in a while, the game is like forces you to go back out and do some story sequence stuff in the present day, walking around with a clipboard. And I could not care less about that part of this. And it does hurt the game to have that there, even though it's not present through a huge amount of it. Just the way that it takes you out of the game world, it just takes you out of the game so much. And to this day, like there's a cliffhanger in this game, which, being 11 years old, I feel like we can talk spoilers here. But if you haven't played it, I guess here's your spoiler warning. But you at the end of three, Desmond like saves the world from a solar flare, and he like unleashes one of these precursor magic beings back into the present day, right? Is Juno, like right, one of the Roman gods. And in this game, it's like Juno is like in the computer system of this company. And then this cliffhanger where in the present day you like you do something and you communicate with her and she brings this like prophecy of doom. And I'm like, someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in all the Assassin's Creed games that have come since Black Flag, and all of them having had like a present day element to their story, I'm pretty confident that that cliffhanger has never had a continuation or resolution in the 11 years since this game came out. So again, it just makes me go and question what the point of having these present day sequences are, because it
Mm.
really doesn't feel like there is one.
So you see the weaker element is all of the when they force you to go back to the present day, a lot of when they
That's by far the weakest part.
okay. Um, and the character Edward, Kenway, there, how does he compare to the other, lead main characters of the Assassin's Creed franchise there?
Personally, for me, he's probably my third favorite out of all of them. I do think he's got a lot more going on than, say, like Connor in the third one, who I found just to be very boring, or Altair in the very first game. This is a bit stoic. I'm not even going to name all of them because there's too many. But between like
I've
Ezio,
oh, yeah.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Ezio is considered the best one, right?
Yeah, Ezio is very charismatic. He's very likable. You get to follow his story from very early in life. Really see kind of his whole life play out from like youth to old age. And I think, yeah, people have a very strong affinity for that character. And then number two, I'd say, is Bayek from Origins. That's a great character. He's the last of the Magi in Egypt in that game, and he's got a whole vengeful quest against this cult that would eventually become the Templars, because they performed like a human sacrifice on his son. And that voice actor that played Bayek would go on to be the kind of story creator and head of development on Tales of Kenzara Zao, which is maybe still my game of the year so far this year. Um, he's just a fantastic actor, brought a lot to that character. But I'd say Edward Kenway here easily goes up there as like the next best one out of those three. He's got a lot of charm. He's got a lot of charisma. I mean, Matt Ryan, you can really tell it's him when you listen to it. Like if you've seen the Constantine, any of his performances, Constantine, I think his voice is very recognizable now, at
Mhm.
least if you're familiar with that character. And there's a charisma. He brings a similar charisma that he brings to the Constantine character, right? He's a pirate. He's kind of dirty. He doesn't necessarily play by the kind of moralistic heroic rules that you expect from someone like Ezio, who's very honorable and always about doing the right thing. Um, Edward Kenway he's a much more he's a pirate, right? He's down to break the rules and kind of do the bad things sometimes, and that's part of why in this game, you kill an assassin and get the uniform, you steal it. You're not inducted through some ceremony into this organization. Like you screw them over like right off the bat. You're messing with them. You mess with their plans and sabotage them even a couple times. And so it's nice to also just have a character in this franchise that's not a 100% like a goody two shoes. You get a little bit of a more of a, I don't know, chaotic good, I would say, maybe is the best way to describe him.
What would be your final thoughts rating for Assassin's Creed Black Flag?
Honestly, I'm gonna give this a peek. Some of the things I'm criticizing are due to its age, right? Like some janky mechanics here. But I think from the gameplay to the story, the character himself, I think being pretty charming and likable and investing in the narrative of, to a really strong supporting cast. I didn't recognize too many in the way of the other actors here, but between at least Matt Ryan and Ralph Ineson as Charles Bane, and the voices of Blackbeard and Jack Rackham, you have some strong performances here. You get a lot of great interaction between pirates trying to form their own nation on Nassau and then stabbing each other in the back, and the kind of political situation that arrives from a pirate nation trying to be formed. And as much as I don't like the present day element of the story, I think they keep it to enough of a minimum that it's only going to hurt the game a little bit, not totally tear it down. And I think for all its strengths, this game it shows a lot of how to do an open world game right. And I think a lot of modern games, including the Assassin's Creed franchise, could look to this and learn or relearn some things about how to design an open world game that's not going to take hundreds of hours to play.
Mhm. So, you kinda came in around a high tune in peak or
Yeah, I'd give it like a peak, maybe even like a low peak, but I'd say I'm right around a peak.
okay. So peak, yeah. People still check it out? I mean, even after all these years, this game is still pretty good to play. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, you're gonna find it for $10 at its most expensive. I think typically on the on a lot of these services, it's an old game, it goes on sale every time there's a sale. So I've seen it for like $5 on not that infrequently. So it's the barrier to entry, very small. I think it's definitely one of the best in this franchise.
mm. So I see it on Amazon right now, it's $22, 22.15
22.
on
That's for a
there.
physical copy.
Physical copy of it, but it might be cheaper if you do digital
Yeah,
there.
I see it on sale for like $5 on the like PlayStation Store. So, I mean, if you just wait for a holiday sale, snatch that game up real cheap. I don't know what its standard like not on sale price is, but I can't imagine it's very expensive just because of its
Uh,
age.
yeah, I see the digital activation code here, yeah, is 8.35 if you want the digital
Okay, yeah,
activation.
that's nothing.
Yeah, and I don't know, they might put it on sale there. I don't know, they might do some special deal with all the Assassin's Creed games since the new one's coming out. So maybe they want people to go and buy the older ones, so they might do that. So very nice. And Matt Ryan is actually got the same demographic as the character he's playing, Edward Kenway. He is Welsh, so it's the same thing there. Um, and the people who did the game, they heard him because originally they were kind of just going to do a generic British accent with him. You know what I mean? They're like, "Oh, we'll just do a British accent." But hearing his natural Welsh accent, they decided just to have him go with that and changed the character's backstory to match the backstory of the actual actor himself.
I did
Uh,
not know that. That's very cool.
so yeah, yeah. But Matt Ryan, I do like his performance as Constantine. He's very good there.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm glad he's been able to kind of slip and stay in that role for so long. I mean, and Crisis on Infinite Earths animated films that are just coming out this year, he's still playing the character even now.
yeah. Is that pretty good? The Crisis on Infinite Earth. I
I
kind of.
just saw the second one and I thought that was pretty good. I thought the first one dragged its feet for like solid like 60-70% of its runtime, and got kind of interesting near the end. So the first one I thought was just okay, but I really enjoyed the second one a lot, actually. They give a lot of screen time to the Psycho Pirate character, who I feel like is a bit more of an obscure DC character. You might know him, you might have seen him in some small things. If you read comics, you might be more familiar with him. Um, but I can't say I've seen him make the translation to animation, definitely not live action or video games much at all. So he's one of those characters that I feel like this is maybe the first time I've seen Psycho Pirate done super, super well outside the comics.
Nice. All right, got one more video game review. And then we're going to be moving on to the next one. So, next one for Sage that he's got lined up is Nobody Wants to Die. Let us know about this game.
Yeah, so this game just came out about 2 weeks ago. It's produced by Critical Hit, and it takes place in New York 2239. It's this kind of dystopian cyberpunk, but it's also kind of retro futuristic 1930s noir aesthetic going on. But it takes place in this future where immortality's basically been invented, and by like having this ability to download and upload people's consciousnesses to new bodies. So you have this like wealthy elite that just they never die, and you have for the most part, nobody ever dies, but they do have this very weird system of body debts. So everyone's in debt over the husks that they put their minds into to stay alive. And you see some really gross, real dirty like slums where people have to live because all they can ever afford is to get a new body, and then they're in so much debt they can never really go and escape poverty. So it's a very interesting kind of. I'd almost describe it as like a Blade Runner meets BioShock as far as like the aesthetic of the world and the kind of philosophical breakdown of like a dystopic society and like kind of how that can work. But it's a really interesting setup here. But then the actual like story of the game is really focused on you're a detective, and there's a murder happens, and it's like a permanent death. Someone destroys the brain so that this person cannot come back. They cannot be uploaded into a new body anymore. And it sets off this, and because it's such a kind of mystery detective game, I don't want to spoil a lot of it, but you have this really cool set of mechanics that reminds me a lot of if you played like specifically Batman Arkham Origins, where you had the crime scene sequences where you can kind of reverse and fast forward time to kind of get a look at what happened and break the crime scene down and try and understand what's going on. The one criticism that I do have for as cool as that system is I do think the game it kind of always highlights where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to investigate and what tool you're supposed to use. Um, and I do think it would have been nice if you maybe had to figure a bit more of it out for yourself, just because I think it's hinging it on this mystery and this detective work. Because there's no combat in this game, right? It is purely detective work, right? Mystery game, pure
Mm.
narrative, all about the story. You walk around in first person and you investigate these crime scenes. You never fight anybody. And there's not even really collectibles that I was able to find to discover. I mean, there's evidence, right, that you're trying to pick up and learn from, but you I think just having a bit more challenge to that detective work would have been nice. But I do want to comment on how just gorgeous this game is visually. I mean, this is like a small little indie game. I believe it's only retailing for like 24.99, and graphically, this looks almost as good as anything AAA coming out right now. Um, and I think that just speaks to this is an Unreal Engine 5 game, and I think it just speaks to the power of how these game engines are progressing and how much easier they are as tools to be able to use, because an indie game being able to design a game like this that looks this good, like I feel like 5 years ago that was just completely unheard of. Like you did not get indie games this high quality visually. And I also did want to mention I didn't recognize the actors here from anything else that I have seen. But Philip Sacramento plays the lead character, James Cara. He's your detective. He's 129 years old. He's got a little bit of that like Max Payne monologue thing going on, where it's this very pulpy noir dialogue. I really like the writing there. He's a really good line delivery on it. Uh, Max Payne with a little more sarcasm is maybe a good way to describe him. And then say her name right, but Keaton Telmaje as the character Sarah Kai. She's you interact with her a little bit physically, but it's mostly the kind of voice in your ear, kind of going across, and it's giving the character a reason to talk about the evidence he's finding, right? Give someone to bounce the investigation off onto. But this the story quickly unravels into obviously there's more going on. Are there other major benefactors involved in this? It kind of opens up into a little bit of a serial killer narrative. Um, and again, I don't want to spoil the story itself too much, but there's some really interesting twists and turns here. I greatly enjoyed the acting performances. I thought the chemistry between Philip and Keaton was really good, especially since the majority of the game is you're just hearing these two actors bounce off each other during these crime scene investigations. Um, and yeah, visually amazing, great acting, great writing, I think, pretty much across the board. My big thing is just I really wish that it was a little more difficult, because I feel like it would be impossible to not come to the right conclusion in these
Mm.
investigations.
So Keaton,
I think it's just, oh, sorry.
oh, I was gonna say Keaton Talmage, who plays the character of Sarah Kai there. So she's like his Jarvis here.
A little bit. I mean, she's a real person sitting in a real place that is
Oh, okay.
communicating with you. It's just that because of the nature of people being in this kind of weird debt bondage over their bodies that they have to purchase, she's like stuck in like this slum area and like can't go outside for a good chunk of the game.
Okay.
And it also talks about being kind of afraid to go outside. An interesting element of the whole dystopic nature of the society here is you have people that are like so fearful of the outdoors, like everyone's inside all the time. You see like no plant life anymore outside. There's like you see Central Park at one point and it's like holographic trees everywhere. Like there's like no nature anymore. um and the slums even that you visit is actually Liberty Island, because this is New York, right? So it's like the statue. It must be the same universe Cloverfield happened in or something, because it's the Statue of Liberty's head is like it's like decapitated, and it's just like slums as far as you can see around the Statue of Liberty. It's a really cool visual, really really distinct and unique aesthetic. Like I said, it's kind of a Bioshock thing, but it's kind of a 30s noir thing, but it's also a Blade Runner cyberpunk thing. I can't compliment the visuals here enough.
So here you see some of the reverse technology here that happens, the investigation. So this is the first mission of the game, pretty much here. Explosion
Yeah, I
happens
think
at
that's
a
the
bar.
second one actually, but it
Second?
is early on.
Okay. So you see some of that,
It's
what you
like a
do here.
Hindenburg blimp crashes in, and you go in and kind of explore like this party that was happening as the crash went down, and what was going on, and was this, was this an accident? Was this on purpose? And then you kind of pick up the trail from there.
Alright. Long game, short game?
This took me maybe 5.5 hours to play. It's a pretty short one. It's pretty short. I can't imagine this would take someone more than like 6 to 7 hours, even if they were being like very slow and really trying to find. But again, I think there's not that much to find here. There's not really a lot of like side stuff. Pretty much you're pointed in the direction of the evidence pretty much the whole time. It would be very hard to miss things. I think the only thing that could extend the game's runtime, honestly, would just be just stopping to appreciate how it looks and the art design.
Yeah. Metacritic has a pretty good score here. Generally favorable, 778, and then user score is at 8.0. Generally favorable here. Pretty good scores, except for this one person. They gave it a 5. They said not much to do aside from walking around and clicking things. Only 3 or 4 choices actually affect the ending.
And
There you
I can totally see that being a fair criticism for some people. There's kind of a whole genre of, I guess, what you'd call a walking simulator, and I think this kind of is in that territory. Um, and that's not for a lot of people, right? Like there's not enough gameplay that in walking simulator type games for a lot of people. For me, I think if the writing is strong, the acting is strong, I think that can really make up for a bit of a lack of gameplay. Um, like I said, for me, I just wish the detective work was harder. I wish you could fail. I wish it didn't always point you where you were supposed to go. I think it could have been a little more interesting if there was some difficulty to that. But like I said, the voice acting, the writing, the visual design, it was enough to pull me through. And especially being, 24.99, I think was the retail price for this. And being a 5 hour game, I could do a walking simulator for a 5 hour game, for a game that's that short. To me, that's like a good length. It works for that style. But I can 100% say that is not going to be for everybody. That for some people it's going to be boring just because there's not enough gameplay to engage with.
so I'm seeing here, yeah, length, like you said, it's pretty much around. It's gonna be around 5 to 6 hours to complete the game. Pretty much around that territory there. So for 25 bucks, you think it's about favorable 5 to 6 hours of gameplay there of content for 25
I
bucks.
think so. I mean, it really depends on whether the story, what does the mystery element of it work for you? Because it's all about a detective case, right? It's a serial killer narrative. Does this mystery's payoff work for you? For me, it landed pretty well. I was not necessarily predicting how things were going to go. So I appreciated it on that level. I think as long as the narrative works for you, I think it's worth the price. I'd give it like a solid, like kind of middle of the road tune in.
Okay, solid middle of the road tune in. It's available on all platforms. Like Sage said, it is 24.99 if people wanted to check it out and pick it up there. Nobody wants to die there. And Sage gave it a tune in. Good looking game. I will say that. Good looking game there. Who's the studio that made this game?
I believe it's called Critical Hit, which
Critical Hit.
they published this under Embracer Group, which that's another company we've had talked about having a lot of problems in the last couple of months here, laying people off, closing studios. Uh, Even Saber Interactive, right, had to purchase themselves from Embracer Group and take the Knights of the Old Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake with them for that game to even continue its development. So Embracer, hey, you know what? They needed a win of some kind, and it might be a small game, might be an indie title, might not make a huge splash. Probably not going to be talked about when people are talking about game of the year at the end of the year, but they needed something. They needed some kind of win here. So I'm glad that at least some good is coming out of that company.
Mm, awesome, man. Critical Hit Games there are the video game developer for this. The publisher was Paleon. Is the
Oh,
publisher
Paleon. Okay. I
Paleon?
thought maybe Paleon is a subsidiary of Embracer, but I thought I read it had Embracer funding it or some sort of maybe it was more of a producer role then. But I know
Uh,
that they were involved somehow.
yeah, it says yeah, Paleon's a German Austrian media company headquartered in Tyrol, Austria, with an operating subsidiary based in Planegg there. So yeah, Paleon there. All right. So yeah, very good review there for Nobody Wants to Die. Moving on to this other review here we got, and get to this news. And then, as always, we're going to be rating somebody. Still some good people on right now, which is very nice there. All right. Let me pull up my notes for this. Go ahead and get started here. All
All right.
right. All right. Sage, are you tired of Batman there at all?
I could never be tired of Batman.
Can never be tired of Batman. Well, you're just in luck. There's a new Batman show out there for people and for yourself to go out there and consume, and that is Batman Cape Crusader. So, Batman Cape Crusader is the Amazon Prime show here. Of course, about the legendary comic book hero Batman. This series was shopped around because it was originally, of course, being a Batman property. DC is owned by Warner Brothers. They originally was supposed to go to Max, but they turned their back on it. Then they started kind of shopping it around a little bit, seeing who would take it. I think at one point even Disney Plus was maybe mentioned as people were going to kind of take it and kind of publish there at one
That's
point.
wild.
But it found a home on Amazon Prime there. And this is a little bit of a different take on Batman than we've seen. And typically, like I said, you're not tired of Batman, but maybe some people are because you get a lot of Batman content, a lot of shows, a lot of movies. There is not an underabundance of Batman that you can find anywhere there when it comes to animated movies, when it comes to animated TV shows, live action TV shows, movies, comic books. There's always something going on with the character of Batman. Video games, the character of Batman. There's always something kind of going on with the character. This one's a little bit of a different take, and this one is trying to aim to be a little bit more grounded, a little bit more realistic, I would say, of it. Trying to go more back to the original incarnation of when Batman first came about, which Batman was created in 1939. But a lot of the runs of Batman very early on were in the 40s when it started really publishing a lot. And that's kind of mainly the style that it's really drawing from that very early on edition of Batman in the 40s and 60s there. Those early Batman stories, but with also a new little bit of a twist on there with some of the designs of the characters there. Like we have a gender swap penguin in there, Oswalda Cobblepot instead of Oswald Cobblepot. You have some stuff like that in this.
The
Uh,
Harley Quinn, which she didn't exist at all back in those comics, so they kind of had to create like a what if she did version of her.
Yes, very true. He's voiced by Jamie Chung in this. And also good voice cast you got here. Some recognizable names that people might know here. Even a former Batman himself, Diedrich Bader, who voiced Batman in Batman the Brave and the Bold. Here he's voicing Harvey Dent, Two-Face there. Do you have a preference besides Kevin Conroy for a Batman voice that you really like?
Besides Kevin Conroy, I mean, I mean, I actually really like the Dietrich Bader one. I find him very entertaining. I'll have to sit on it a little, but Hamish Linklater in this series is, I think, really, really impressive with his voice. He's shot up to probably near the top of that list for me
Okay.
already.
And you mentioned Hamish Linklater. People might know him. He was just recently in a Mike Flanagan show, Midnight Mass, which is on Netflix there. And people thought he really shined in that. He played the priest in that. And he really shined in that performance there. He's been in tons of things. He's been in Hollywood a very, very long time there. And he is
He's
the
a
new
major character in the Legion series as well, so it's not his
ah
first comic book either.
yes. Yes, Legion as well. I think I forgot oh yes, he was the guy that was
He was
chasing
the
him.
Yeah, in the first season he's like chasing them, and then he's got some really cool makeup effects that he has to wear in later in like season 2 and 3 that he has to act through, and I thought he was very impressive in that show as well.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, he was the guy that was chasing him early on in Legion there. So yeah, people might know him for that. There, he's the new voice of Batman. Besides Kevin Conroy, because of course, if you say who's your favorite Batman voice, everybody's going to say Kevin Conroy there, pretty much. Who rest in peace to him, who passed
Which he
away.
just had his final appearance in the third part of the Crisis on Infinite Earths animated movie, the final performance of Kevin Conroy.
Okay, is this the final performance? I mean, I feel like it's like Tupac when they finally got a new final album coming out. It's like, is this really the final performance of Kevin Conroy? There's no more.
Supposedly this is it, but who knows? They could pull something else up, but they're like, "Ha, we didn't tell you about this one" or something. I don't know. It could happen.
Okay. All right, but yes, rest in peace to Kevin Conroy, who passed away. I think it was what last year.
Ooh, I
Oh,
think it was early last year, but it might have even been 2 years ago at this point.
let's see. Oh, he passed away. Yes, it was 2 years ago in 2022. So yes, Kevin Conroy, legendary Batman voice actor there from Batman the Animated Series, and a lot of people have been drawing kind of comparisons to the style that this show is trying to do, Batman Cape Crusader and the legendary Batman the Animated Series, which is tough because Batman the Animated Series is considered one of the greatest animated series of all time, or it's even one of the greatest shows of all time. There, how do you feel about Batman the Animated Series?
I mean, I'm a huge fan of it. I like it a lot. I do think uh, sometimes people romanticize it just a little, where they kind of act as though it was a bit flawless. And I do think this show has some very visible A team, Emmy-winning episodes like Heart of Ice. That kind of created that Mr. Freeze origin story with the sick wife, right? Incredible piece of art. And then there's episodes like I've Got Batman in My Basement, which was kind of clearly a B team episode that feels uh, very, very kind of cringy to watch now. And so like there's some holes in the series as well. Plus the final season changed the art style, and some of the character designs in that last season maybe don't work quite as well. Like Catwoman looks a little odd. Joker, they do something weird with his eyes in that last season that just it looks a little strange. Um, but personally, I think that that was being the beginning of the DCAU, DC animated universe. That would then be followed by Superman the animated series, Batman, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited, and Static Shock. I personally think the writing got better in every subsequent show. So if I was going to pick out of that kind of whole universe of things, I actually think Batman would be the weakest one. As strong as I think certain individual
Mm,
episodes are, as an overall series, I think it is a very good but flawed starting point for that particular universe and continuity.
that may be a hot take. You're saying Batman the Animated Series is the weakest of the DCAU.
I'd say maybe I like it more than the Static Shock show, but I don't think it holds a candle to Justice League Unlimited. I think the writing peaks with
Mm.
that last series.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Also talking about Batman the Animated Series, you do have one of the main creators from Batman the Animated Series who's coming over to do Batman Cape Crusader, Bruce Timm. Bruce Timm, who also was, like you said, one of the masterminds behind the whole DCAU there, with all those other shows that you mentioned. And you have some really all-star producers with this as well. You have people like J.J. Abrams, who's a part of this. You also have Matt Reeves just recently directed The Batman with Robert Pattinson there. Another kind of different somewhat interpretation of the Batman character than we've seen on screen before. I was a big fan of the Batman myself there and Robert Pattinson's interpretation of the character. So you think with kind of like we mentioned all this kind of Batman content out right now, do you think at least we're getting some unique perspectives on the character and every kind of one of some of these different interpretations there?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's, that's the only way to keep something fresh while putting out so much of it, right? I mean, I think they've, for the most part, done a pretty good job recently. Not counting the Snyderverse Batman stuff. I'm just tossing that out the window. But between the Matt Reeves movie and this, I think there's a good distinction between them. Although they do echo some similarities of each other. Just to even piggyback on, we were talking about Hamish Linklater's The Voice. I think I notice a similarity between how Robert Pattinson played the character and how very stuck in his kind of cold and just very uncompassionate at times kind of behavior, being somewhat early in his career as Batman. I think you see a little bit of that here too. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen Batman be so cold towards Alfred in like any other adaptation than this Capes Crusader series.
Yes, that's very true. He calls him Pennyworth in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard him call him by his last name. It's usually Alfred there, usually typically affectionately
Yeah.
Alfred there.
There was a
And
couple of moments where I thought he was going to backhand him in one of the scenes. Like, I really thought he was going to smack him.
And I mean, it's almost like, Alfred is almost like an abused spouse in this almost. Like he's just kind of sticking with Bruce here. And with this in Batman Cape Crusader, we're seeing Batman, he is Batman already. We're not really seeing the origin story of Batman. He's basically it's kind of almost like a year one type situation, been Batman for a little bit of time. The citizens of Gotham, still think he's kind of a myth, you know what I mean, kind of a fake story here. But when he does appear, they realize he is the truth. So I'm gonna give you thoughts. Pass around. Sage, what are your thoughts on Batman Cape Crusader here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I really enjoyed this. The vast majority of it. I've got a couple things that didn't totally work for me, but for the most part, I thought this was really good most of the way through. I liked, between the Clayface depiction, the Harley Quinn, seeing villains like Onomatopoeia, which is like I wasn't even that familiar with that character, and then I had someone kind of tell me a little bit more about that in the comics. It's like a Kevin Smith creation from like a very particular one-off comic that's like only reappeared one other time in like a Green Arrow book, and then this is like only I want to say the character's third or fourth appearance ever. So they're pulling in from some, and there's a couple other spots too where I'm like I don't even know who this is an adaptation of. I had to look up. There's like kind of a more supernatural character at one point in the villain, and it's not the Gentleman Ghost episode, but the one following it with the
The
circus.
Yeah, the Soul Sucker
That's a
ship.
character from a comic, a very obscure one from like the early '80s, and I just like I didn't even know that. I did. So this I feel like I'm someone that I know a lot of comics. I wouldn't say I'm a complete expert or anything because you can only one person can only read so much unless it's like a full-time job. But I am rarely surprised or unfamiliar with material that's being shown to me, and this gave me a few things where I was like, oh, here's a comic that I wasn't even aware of. So that feels really special. That lends a lot of love to this for me. Yeah, right there. She had a very I in my mind very obscure character here. But yeah, so I really appreciated that about it. I really like the style of it. I like the animation. I will say, comparing it, if you're going to compare it to the '90s animated series, and not that it's fair to do that directly, but I do think there's something about the art in the '90s animated series. It's very special because they drew on black construction paper, and that's part of why that show has such a unique look to it. And this show, with Bruce Timm being involved, and it has some similar stylistic sensibilities to the '90s series. Like that's the '90s series also had a bit of an old school look to the city, right? It
That
wasn't
gothic
totally
type
appealing.
style.
Yeah, yeah, it had
Dark
a bit of a
City, The
retro feel.
Crow. Kinda.
Totally. And so, this is animated a lot more conventionally. And I'm not saying at all it looks bad. I think it does have very good animation, some really good fight scenes, especially when they depict Batman really kind of using like a boxer's fighting style in some of those action scenes. I think some of that's really fluid. That's really good. Um, but again, if you're going to compare them directly, there is something maybe just a little missing about that drawing on black construction paper thing that just gave that such a memorable look. Whereas, again, not bad at all, just a little more conventionally animated, a little more typical of just modern animation in general. And that's to take nothing away from the art style itself, which I think is fantastic.
It's a pretty
Um,
good shot of the city right here. You see some of the
yeah, yeah, that looks
buildings.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess the only thing I would say, I would particularly want to comment on. I loved this take on Harley Quinn. That
Mm,
to me was one of the standouts here, having to kind of create a golden age version of Harley Quinn for this character that didn't exist at the time, and seeing how they do that different take on her, kind of divorced from the Joker entirely, really making her her own standalone villain. I thought that was fascinating how they the execution on that.
mm. Yes, like I said, as I said before, voiced by Jamie Chung. Here, Harley Quinzel, who shows up as first episode. She's Bruce Wayne's therapist in this after an incident he had punching the shit out of somebody. Um, Talking about his mama, ended up punching the shit out of yeah.
Why did you
So,
say that name?
uh, very nice. Yeah. So, Batman Cape Crusader. I mean, obviously, you can't really compare it to Batman animated series. I mean, it's tough because obviously, like I said, Batman animated series is one of the best animated shows ever, greatest shows ever. So I don't feel right comparing those two things. And also, this is the very first season of the show. And we are going to do a little spoilers talk with it. I mean, the whole series has released, I think on August 1st. I think, yeah, August 1st
Yeah,
released. Um, so get into some spoiler talk with it. It does tease a second season. I don't know if it'll get a second
yeah.
season, but it does tease one there with it. And I can see so starting off, I like the way it looks. I like how it does more of that stripped down style of Batman. It is not a lot of gadgets, not a lot of fancy stuff here. It's just kind of him, his costume, his fists, his grappling hook there. Does he even? I don't think does he even use batarangs in this? I don't think he even uses bat.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
He does. Yeah, I remember him in the first episode knocking the penguin's hand away from like a lever with one.
okay, yeah, so it's very, very stripped down of what we've seen typically Batman, and I think one of the criticisms of Batman now is that it's so high tech and so all these gadgets and everything like that, and in one comic, I think there's one where he throws an orb into a room, almost like nobody wants to die or something in that video game where he can throw it into the room and then it does all the work for him, and then he can, basically reverse time and do all this stuff like that. It's like, it really misses a lot of the detective work, so I did appreciate that style there. The voice work here is really good from everybody kind of involved and everybody doing this. Hamish Linklater, who does play Batman, does a solid job here. Before I talked more about the DCAU and kind of what Bruce Timm did there and Kevin Conroy, I would say besides Kevin Conroy, my second favorite voice for Batman has been Bruce Greenwood. I think he's really delivered a really
He's
solid job
good. Yeah,
as
as the
Batman.
under the red hood that he was mainly in, right?
Yeah, Under the Red Hood. He's done some couple other stuff. I mean, he's got a great voice in general if you ever listen to him, and he was also in another Mike Flanagan. He usually pops up in Mike Flanagan projects there. He was just in, what was that show, that just recently
Um, oh,
uh,
and I just watched it not
The
that long
Bly
ago.
Manor,
Yeah,
there.
yeah, he was in Bly Manor, and then he was also in the one that just came out. That was the Edgar Allan Poe one last year.
Yes, I'm blanking on the name of that
The Fall
one.
of the House of Usher. There we go.
All of the House,
Took me a
yes.
second.
So yes, he usually pops up, and then he's got a great voice in general there. Besides them, so you also have John DiMaggio, who's a veteran voice actor. People know him. He's Bender in
He's been the
Futurama.
Joker even.
Yes, he was the Joker in the Batman, the 2004 animated series. There, he was
Yeah,
Batman there, playing Harvey Bullock. You also have Gary Anthony Williams. People that know he was in Boondocks. He played Uncle Ruckus there. He plays Flash there. You also have we already mentioned Dietrich Bader there. Cedric Yarbrough is in this, so really rounds out. And then also, and Christina Ricci plays Catwoman in this as well. Christina Ricci
hmm
plays Catwoman. Um, And so really good voice cast there, and a lot of these episodes are basically the origin story for a lot of these villains. You see basically the origin story of Catwoman, the origin story of Clayface, the origin story of Harley Quinzel becoming Harley Quinn there. And like I said, very much stripped down because Clayface, it's not Clayface as we normally see Clayface being this huge, like kind of mutant creature who's can shapeshift and do all these things. Just a person who's just badly scarred and then they kind of runs around, you know what I mean, committing murders there, almost like a Phantom of the Opera type thing there, instead of the Clayface we've usually gotten in even things like Batman the Animated Series. Did you feel like it being so stripped down? Did you feel like it took away a little bit of the excitement of things as being such a modern day Batman viewer for so long? Did you feel any of that?
I didn't think so. I thought it was, with two exceptions, I thought the takes on all of these villains were super interesting, felt fresh. I thought the character writing shone through so well that, like, even being a bit stripped down in certain cases, I thought the execution of it was all really strong. Two exceptions would be, I mean, one of them even I was more neutral on, which is the penguin, the female penguin that they do. I thought I was just kind of neutral on that. I didn't think it was bad or super interesting. Kind of could have gone either way for me. But I'll say the one that didn't really land for me at all, honestly, was the Two Face uh, adapted version here.
Mm,
That for me was kind of the weakest material in the season.
mm. And why do you say that?
Well, I think that they spend so much time. They spend a lot of time showing Harvey Dent before he becomes Two Face here, and you'd think that that would lend really well to kind of doing that origin story at the end of the season. But I think, the thing to me that was missing here was typically a lot of these adaptations of Harvey Dent. I mean, go to whether it's the animated series or the Dark Knight, or many of the different comics, The Long Halloween, which is maybe one of the greatest Batman comics that also had a pretty good, at least serviceable adaptation not too long ago. Harvey Dent is a character who is likable before he's Two Face, and here I felt like they did the opposite of that. I thought they made him very kind of unlikable, corrupt, uh, like hyper sexist towards like Barbara in the offices. And to me, when he has the turn, and especially the way they try and kind of hinge his character on his relationship with Barbara in those episodes, it kind of fell flat for me because I was like, why does Barbara care about him now that he's Two Face when she hated him before he was Two Face? I didn't really buy the relationship between those two characters, and it felt like the whole finale kind of hinged on that.
Mm. Uh, yeah, so you have Harvey Dent, who people know turns into the infamous Two Face there, a famous Batman villain. And I guess you're saying that, I mean, he was an asshole before he was Two Face. So when he becomes Two Face, it's like, well, you were already kind of an asshole. I mean, so it really doesn't change much there.
Yeah,
Um,
I just didn't really feel like I didn't feel like I had a reason to really feel super bad for him or care about where his character was going or how it changed because it didn't seem like he didn't wasn't getting along with or wasn't nice to anyone before that.
yeah. I would say, I mean, besides for Batman and, Alfred, do you think, I mean, Harvey Dent Two Face pretty much stays very true to pretty much the comic version of that character, the origins of that character?
Except for that, I think Harvey pre the transformation is like an interesting, likable character. I mean, he struggles with split personality disorder in a lot of versions. Something I think was showcased really strongly in the '90s series. But here he's just kind of a douchebag in the office, and then he becomes Two Face. I just didn't think there felt like there was all that much personality to him. The actor Diedrich Bader, I don't think he does a bad job. I think it's in the scripting that I have an issue with here. I think there's just not a lot of meat on the bones for this one. And I think the way that I feel like a lot of the way that the show tries to kind of get you to care about him falling is through Barbara because Barbara cares.
Mm.
But I felt like their relationship was so antagonistic before he becomes Two Face that I'm like, I'm with Barbara. I kind of hate this guy. And then I'm like, why do you care about him all of a sudden? He was so awful to you, like every single episode up until this point. So,
Hey, how's it going there, Cal? Good to see you, man. Nice
hey,
to
what's
meet
up, Cal?
Yeah, I mean, don't you think also with Bruce, I mean, it tries to also humanize him through his friendship because he still is best friends with Bruce and everything like that.
I think you see a little bit of that, but I think a lot of those conversations, I still feel like in those conversations, well, I mean, it's one of the things that I think is really interesting about Bruce is that Hamish Linklater does this really cool way of doing the different Batman voice versus the different Bruce Wayne voice, where I think Bruce Wayne, he's very good at like, he's pretending to be friendly and kind of amicable with people and nice and the kind of party goer. But I think Hamish Linklater does a really great job of making it feel fake too, like to the audience. Like you can tell that it's a front that the people are buying, but you can kind of see through it as an audience member. And he's almost doing like a double performance there. And so a lot of the scenes between Bruce and Harvey, to me, it feels like Bruce is like, I don't care about this guy that much. This is just my persona. And then with Harvey in those scenes, I feel like he's talking about how he's like, isn't it awesome how corrupt I am? And the way they're getting along kind of falls flat to me for that reason as well.
Yeah. Here's a little bit of Hamish Linklater as Bruce Wayne here, and I'm gonna play another clip there later on about showing his performance as Bruce Wayne. I mean, of Batman here, but here's a little bit of his Bruce Wayne.
Trying to be helpful, but I'd also like to keep my family name out of the papers if possible. I thought a donation to the department might ensure my involvement here was kept private. Or I could make a check out to you, Miss Montoya.
It's Detective Montoya, Mr. Wayne. And not everything is for sale in this city. I'm not interested in dragging you through the mud. I just want to find Yvonne Francis. You were the last person to see her. That's the
And
only.
the Bruce Wayne design, usually it kind of still looks very much like the Batman the Animated Series kind of design there, Bruce
I
Wayne.
think it's very similar. And that's when I mentioned the art style earlier. I think the only reason I compare the art just a little bit is because I do think there's a similar sensibility, even though it's not exactly the same. But I think it's very true to those designs.
Yeah. And I guess with the friendship of Bruce and Harvey there, I mean, it also doesn't kind of make sense that they are friends given how because in this scene, so he's trying to bribe the detective here, and then later on he goes like, "Well, she didn't take my bribe, so I know she's a good person, so I can maybe work with her in the future." So it doesn't kind of make sense because Harvey is dirty. He's working with the criminals there. I mean, I guess some of it is because hey, like, okay, you give me some information, I'll let you slide on some things. I put some people away. I look good. But it seems like it's mostly for him to look good so it can look good for his mayoral race there that he's doing his campaign because he's
Yeah.
still trying to be Mayor Dent, mayor of Gotham. That's still a premise here. So it kinda doesn't make even with this the whole much sense that, that he's best friends with him here. Um, yeah, and you spoke about some of the changes here, with the characters and some who've changed and some who haven't changed. You mentioned Oswalda Cobblepot in this, who is, I guess, one of the big things that people are talking about in this, and we're gonna discuss some other changes here. Um, so with Oswald, you say you didn't really it didn't really make a difference for you, her being,
Yeah, I
Penguin being
was
a woman in
neutral
it.
on it. I thought it felt so much like the same character that I both am like, I'm not going to complain that they made this change, but I'm also going to, on the same note, say, I don't know if I feel like the change was necessary because I don't know if I feel like they did anything that was particularly interestingly different either.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of Minnie Driver who's voicing, Oswaldo Cobblepot there.
You've been most helpful. I'll see you in Flask at an extra 50 this week. The little fink is spilling it to Gordon right now.
Let me have one of the insiders take care of it. Keep it quiet.
No, it's too late for quiet.
Mm.
You don't
And I
know.
like Minnie Driver. I like Minnie Driver, as an actress there. I think she does a good job here as the Penguin. Um,
I agree with that. Yeah, I think she does a good job. I think it's just in terms of the writing, I'm just like, it's kind of the same character.
and, I don't know, some people were thirsting after Oswaldo Cobblepot. I don't know if you were one of those people, but some people
No,
got
no, I wouldn't. I think if nothing else, I think that nose is pretty off-putting.
I'm not one of those people, but I mean, some people got a thing for Oswaldo Cobblepot. I don't. I mean, people have a thing there. So,
There'll be
I,
fan art in no time, I'm sure.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. There, Rule 34, as they always say. So yeah, so you have her. I thought she was good. And then in this version, she has sons, incompetent sons. Um,
You know what it really reminded me was Margot Martindale's villain in the second season of Justified.
Oh, that's a good
She's got like
comparison.
Jeremy Davies as one of the kids, and yeah, they're like her henchmen that she's sending out, and then she'll like scream at them when they kind of fuck up and do something wrong.
I mean, if they ever do a female penguin, she'd actually make a good pick, there. She'd actually make a good pick, Margot Martindale there. Very great character actor, Margot Martindale. Great recurring role in BoJack Horseman there. So yeah, I mean, I think she was good there. So you have that. Barbara Gordon in this is a defense attorney, very much, caring about a lot of the criminals in Gotham and then wanting to see them do better. It's like they're not just gonna do better if you just put them in prison and that's it, and then a rotating revolving door. Um,
Yep.
you do have Commissioner Gordon, who's still Commissioner Gordon in this, who's still that's still a role that he fulfills there.
He felt
And
pretty much the same.
pretty much pretty the same. We've already seen a black Commissioner Gordon. We've seen him in the Batman, played by Jeffrey Wright there. With that, so I mean,
As long as he's got a mustache, that's the only thing I care about.
just so yeah, he's got the mustache there. I mean, he's got the very J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson type thick mustache there as always. And even got the gray in the hair too. Has that kind of look there. The changes that are made to the characters, besides like people like Oswald, people you have like Barbara Gordon, Commissioner Gordon, Harley Quinn. Did that impact anything for you?
For basically for everything except Two-Face and Penguin, I actually really liked the changes, or the kind of different interpretations of the character, and Harley Quinn being like a standout. I actually kind of wish that the season might have ended on that. I think it would have left like a longer, kind of stronger end of the season, lasting impression to take away with the show with. Yeah, I think they're all pretty interesting and well executed, and they feel unique and worth exploring and worth adapting that way. Um, yeah, outside of just those two, and again, one Penguin I was neutral on. I didn't dislike it or particularly like it. Really, Two Face was the only one I felt negatively about the execution for. But between yeah, Gentleman Ghost, Clayface, the vampiric kind of Russian character, with the circus, and then seeing like all the seeing some of the kind of sidekick stuff that they do or pay homage to in that episode, I thought was also very fun. Um, I also thought it was there's some cool little side appearances too that I wasn't expecting here, like in the Gentleman Ghost episode. There's a Constantine character that pops up that I was like, oh, that's really cool. I wasn't expecting that. Other than Two Face, like I got like pretty much nothing but positive things to say.
Okay. And what do you think about the setting? It being in kind of this 40s type world here. Do you think that setting conflicts with any of the characters here in this world? So, like a Harley Quinn, she is a lesbian, as you see her out to dinner, and she has a girlfriend, and kissing the girlfriend out in public. Do you think that at all kind of crashes into each other? Should people like it being in the 40s, but it's not really in the 40s? Do you think they should adhere to history standards of what it was like in the 40s. But I mean, if you do that, then obviously Batman. I mean, the Batmobile is very much like there was no car like that in the 40s.
No,
Obviously, but you know what I mean, very advanced
oh,
like that.
there weren't any ghosts either.
Yeah, I mean, so what do you kind of say to that there?
I mean, I think I could see where I could see where there could be a line of thinking of this could be maybe deeper and more interesting if we did depict it exactly how it was, and hey, some social commentary because of that could also be interesting. But I also, you know, I don't mind it being like a gothic fantasy version of the time period either. I feel like there's not a bad option between those two. I think both are interesting in their own ways. And so I wouldn't say it's a negative for it to not be like a realistic depiction of the 40s, even though that could also have been interesting. But I think just as far as just what they decided to do with it, I think it works pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And when you see a little bit of, the portrayal of Batman, very much a cold, distant, very much getting to this, Batman is almost probably just as fucked up as the people that he's chasing there, mentally. And you see that in the therapy sessions he's doing with, Harley Quinzel, and also importantly to show that she's actually very good at her job. She's actually Harley Quinzel is actually a very good doctor because she reads him, up and down, pretty well there. There's even a point where he tries to steal some notes there from her, and then she puts a little message in there from her. It's like, oh, okay, we'll see you next session. I thought that was pretty good there.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that's one of the reasons why I think I liked maybe the reinterpretation of Harley the most. Because I do think that her being across multiple episodes, I think there's just a bit more of a personal dynamic that's built between Batman and Harley versus some of the other villains that kind of, one-off episodes. We deal with them, we're moving on to the next thing. I thought there was like just a little bit more character dynamic added to that.
yeah. Do you feel like it was a little bit too episodic? Would you like to have seen a more bigger overarching story over the season? Did you like the
To be
case of
honest,
the
the only time it did an overarching story was the Two-Face, which was my least favorite part of the show. So I'm cool with it being episodic. Like I said, I think laying seeds across the season. For me, I feel like the first half of the season laid the seeds for Harley, and then kind of partway through we got the Harley episode. I thought that worked really well. So I guess it's just a matter of execution, but I don't mind it being episodic. I mean, it feels like a serialized comic book that way.
Mm, yeah. Let me play a little bit of him as Batman here. You get to hear a little bit of Hamish Linklater's Batman.
Help! Help me! Someone! Who's behind those explosions? Oh God! Who? What are
I mean,
you?
I gotta admit, that's a lot of man to be hanging. I don't know. I mean, I don't know Batman. I mean, hey, Batman must be strong guy. He must be in the gym a lot. That's a lot of man to be hanging off a roof
Either
there.
that or he's got practice with Alfred and he's doing this to him like
Oh yeah, that's
every
true.
every night for practice.
3 buildings blown to pieces. You falsified the reports. Who paid you? Are you crazy? Pull me up! Give me a name. Just pull me up! Oh God! Hurry, please! I won't ask again. It was a penguin! It was a freaking penguin!
Oh, there you go. And he splatters him right there. Just lets him hang there. So on the train there. And Kelsey, who's your favorite Batman adaptation? Um,
Kevin Conroy is my number one.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, Kevin Conroy is obviously, yeah, it's a pretty good pick. I mean, people hear his voice when they're reading the Batman comic now. I mean, it's just that iconic thing. People also hear Mark Hamill's voice as the Joker there as well.
Really
Um,
iconic duo.
yeah, I feel like with Mark Hamill, I feel like he's got two voices, either the Joker voice or I'm from the Bronx voice. You know what I mean? He's kind of got
Yeah,
either.
he can. Yeah, he's
He's,
got a lot of that. When I see him pop up in other animated stuff, I feel like I often hear one of those two voices.
yeah, like when he's in Invincible, that's like okay, he's bringing out the Bronx voice. You know what I mean? And then when he's in
Yeah.
when he plays like the what's that villain's name in the Flash? Was it Trickster or
Trickster, he's just doing the Joker.
he's the Joker? Yeah, it's like okay, you're just the Joker. Yeah. Even in the Fall of House Usher, it's like okay, you bringing out the Bronx voice. Okay, this is the he's like okay, requires the Bronx voice. But I love Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill's fantastic.
No, he's great. He's great.
Yeah. So, what will be your final thoughts and rating for Batman Cape Crusader?
Oh, man, I really, really enjoyed I guess 7 out of 10 episodes here. Loved 7 out of 10. Neutral on one, kind of down on the last two. So I give this a tune in, kind of just
Okay.
like a regular tune in. I think I really like a lot of what this is doing. A lot of the twists are working for me. It was just that little bit at the end where, and I think it maybe sticks out just a bit more because it was the only maybe more serialized or ongoing element of the season that I didn't care for, and the fact that it was the last 2 episodes, so it kind of left off on its worst note for me. But for the most part, I really did like this. I think Hamish Linklater is going to be up there, at least in like the top five voices for Batman, if not like top 2 or 3 for me. I think he was knocked it out of the park. I think most of the cast here does a great job. One other thing I'll mention along with my rating is I think you get a lot of like ensemble cast of Gordon and Barbara and Montoya and Bullock and Flass, and really getting to see the dynamic in the police station. And I thought that was a really cool because I feel like, if that's something to give this a point over the 90s animated series is you never got as much of a dynamic between all those characters as you did with Batman one on one with each of those characters. So that's something I think this show did really well, standout wise. Great art style, great animation. Even if it's a little conventionally created, by today's standards and just in terms of how animation is done now. But yeah, all in all, solid, strong tune in.
What's your favorite episode?
Favorite episode's gonna be the Harley Quinn one, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was really strong. I really liked that. I love her costume. I love the way they did her look for kind of a 40s version of Harley Quinn. I love that she had nothing to do with the Joker in this version. It was like a completely standalone villain. And I thought she had the most interesting dynamic with Bruce and Batman before fully being the villain. So that I think was the most interesting the
That
show
was
was to me.
episode 5, The Stress of Her Regard.
Yeah, I think yeah, right in the middle.
Okay, yeah. I really love the Catwoman episode. I give it to maybe Catwoman. I like that. Christina Ricci
That was
coming
great
in.
too.
And this and
They got the
Catwoman's a
Catmobile.
yeah, she's got the like a Catmobile there. And how she's kind of just like a rich socialite there. Who just
Yeah, it's very true to. It feels very true to some of the old comics. I mean, that costume she's wearing, right? That's straight out of the '40s, the classic '40s look. And yeah, the fact that she's kind of in over her head and kind of messes up a lot. And I don't know. I thought she was a very charming and endearing version of that character.
yeah. Is this the one that Julie Newmar she wore in Batman '60s show? It's kind of similar.
Julie Newmar's got more of like a all black leotard with like a gold necklace.
Ah, yes. Okay, yeah, yeah. I'm looking at it right here. Here we go. So this okay,
Yeah,
very nice.
I just watched one of her episodes the other day. Actually, been watching my way through that series.
Yeah. How was it when they did the animated movie where they brought everybody back?
I thought that was a lot of fun. Plus, you know what? I liked that Two Face better than this Two Face. If I'm being honest, it was William Shatner too, because there actually never was a Two Face in the old Adam West series. They never did that character. So when they did that animated movie, they were like, "Well, let's get an actor of that age to come in and play Two Face," and they went with William Shatner, which I thought was a really fun choice.
Nice. But yeah, I liked the Catwoman episode there. I thought that was pretty good. I like the back and forth also between him and Catwoman. That's always a very fun play between the both of them. And it was really good in the Batman. I thought that was very good there.
Yeah, yeah, really strong there too.
Yeah. So I would give it a tune in as well. Would I be interested to see a second season? Yes, I would be interested to see a second season, see it improve upon some things in the second season. Some better, stronger stories here, some more better arcs here. Like I said, this is kind of beginning of Batman, beginning of his relationships. Him maybe learning to trust certain people in the Gotham City PD. One of the main people that he kind of learns to grow more, kind of trust for is Barbara Gordon. So he's creeping up on her instead of Commissioner Gordon. He's scaring the shit out of her first before he goes
Right.
over there. Hopefully they don't do the thing like they did in Batman. What was it? The Killing Joke. Hopefully they don't do that. What
Yeah.
happened in the Killing Joke there? But I
Fingers
mean,
crossed.
maybe because I think they're supposed to be somewhat the same age in this. Is that what the five?
It would make more sense here, honestly, than anywhere else.
Yeah, because it seems like they're somewhat supposed to be the same age there. So it wouldn't be as creepy as what happened in the Killing Joke there.
This would probably be the least creepy version if they did do that.
Yeah. So and also like some of the deep cuts, like you mentioned, the Noctura, that was a deep cut there, and Onomatopoeia is kind of more of a deep cut. There, the
And
gentlemanly. Oh,
gentlemen, it was the side character, Papa Midnight. That's like a straight up Hellblazer Constantine character.
yeah, so I like that there. A little bit more of a throwback there to some of the kind of retro type villains. We don't get the same. Of course, everybody knows Harley Quinn. Everybody knows, Clayface. Everybody knows Two Face there. So a little bit more different ones there that we kind of get, which was nice. But it does tease Joker at the end of this season because as much as you get tired of Batman, people probably sick as hell of Joker because we get a lot of Joker. I mean,
To be honest, I could have done without that.
I could have figured, like, of course, you're gonna have to tease Joker because everybody, Joker's the main guy. Everybody knows
Yeah.
Joker there. So you kind of got there.
At least he didn't have a grill. That's all
Yeah,
I ask.
at least he didn't have a grill. He wasn't singing show tunes. I think we're gonna see him in the next movie there. So you have that. So yeah, two good tune ins there for Batman Cape Crusader. It's on Amazon Prime right now. People can binge it, all 10 episodes there, about 25 minutes to 30 something minutes there of good
Yeah.
time there. Yeah, I like that, you kind of see Batman a little bit more grow, throughout the series there. Like that episode with Noctura, you see him like maybe in the first episode he wouldn't have done what he did in that episode. He kind of picks her
Yeah,
up and drapes his cape over that. So it's like okay, you see in the character grow a little bit more there
yeah,
throughout the
yeah. I
show.
like that.
I like the part where he got beat the shit up by carnies. They thought he was a pedo. He beat the shit out of him. Yeah, that was something there. Yeah, yeah. So Batman Cape Crusader there. Any animated superhero show I mean, have you seen My Adventure with Superman season 2? Have you watched that?
I've not watched the second season of the Superman series yet. I plan to. I liked the first season, but I didn't love it, so I'm curious how I'll feel about the second one.
What else is a really good one right now?
X-Men 97.
X-Men
As
97,
far
yeah.
as this year goes, I thought that was just incredibly strong.
Yeah. Do you think this is good for kids? Kids can watch Batman Cape Crusader?
Um, I mean, I watched worse when I was a kid, so but I think it depends on the kid. Um,
Not too
what might
scary
freak
for
one?
them.
Yeah, I mean, what might freak one kid out might be totally just like unfazed with another. So I
Yeah.
feel like it really depends.
Yeah. I feel like, yeah, try to have more superhero media cartoons for kids because it's like, okay, it's My Adventure with Superman. I think it's pretty good for them.
I still need to watch more of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. That's something I've still been sitting on. I like really would like to get to. That seems like a pretty strong one.
That's one. I'd say X-Men 97 would be a good one for kids. I don't think you have to be a fan of the X-Men the animated series to get into it. I think.
No, I
Um,
think I think maybe as it gets to certain like the Shi'ar episode, it's like, all right, what are they talking about? But other than that, yeah,
that's pretty strong. I'm trying to think of another good one that would be for kids there, but
recent superhero cartoon. Hmm.
yeah, I'm trying to think of another. What would be another good one there? But yeah, it seems like a lot of
They
them are
should,
pretty. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say they should bring Static Shock back. I'd like to see that done again.
Oh, yeah, that would be good to see come back there. Yeah, definitely not Invincible. I don't think kids would.
No,
Probably.
that's not Invincible. Is definitely not for kids.
Yeah, I don't think you probably want kids to probably watch that there. All right, let me pull up this story for this news here, and we can head out and raid somebody after this. Thanks, Cal, for showing up, man.
Yeah, good
Very
to see
much,
you, Cal.
very much appreciated, Cal. Great streams over there. He does great stuff, great work. Streaming like good stuff. What are you streaming recently, Cal? I think I've seen him play. What has he been playing recently? Valorant recently, or
Probably Overwatch too.
Overwatch? That's the one. That's the looter shooter that he's playing right now. I've heard.
The hero, it's like the 5v5 kind of hero shooter. I'd
Yeah.
say Borderlands is more of the looter shooter genre.
Oh, okay. So yeah, 5v5. Yeah, so Borderlands is more of the looter shooter, and then Overwatch and Valorant are more of the just like 5v5.
Yeah, so you got like Overwatch, Valorant, Apex Legends. You put that in that category. That Concord game that's coming out, I don't think it's going to do very well. Um, yeah,
Marvel Rivals coming out.
Marvel Rivals is going to
I
be
hear
that
it's
style. Yeah.
Marvel Rivals is pretty solid, is what I'm hearing. Pretty good.
I believe it probably is. I just am personally not a fan of that genre, but I'm sure it's probably very good if that's a genre that you're into.
All right. So, our news today is going to be Warner Brothers fucking up as always here. Uh,
Still,
Still here. Warner Brothers Discovery says its TV channels are worth 9 billion less than it thought. This is from
that's a 9 billion loss in 1 quarter.
Yeah. It says just realized that Warner Bros. Discovery just realized its TV networks are worth 9.1 billion less than they originally thought, leading to a net loss of 10 billion in the second quarter of 2024. The massive plummet in valuation is being recognized as a non-cash goodwill impairment of charge here, primarily coming from the network section of the company. That must have been one eye-opening internal audit here. Man.
How are you that off? Like how do you go a couple of years going like we've got 10 billion more than we actually do? Like, how did you make that mistake?
And it seems like constant news about what's been going on at Warner Brothers. The CEO David Zaslav axing a lot of stuff, axing a lot of things on the platform of Max, animated shows, movies. Of course, famously the Batgirl movie that didn't come out. They put their stocks into the Flash, and that failed. Pretty. They put their chips into that, and that did not work out so well. They did
Ended up
the
being my least favorite movie of all time.
wow. You hate that movie that much?
That's as bad as like was that Florida Gator movie from like the 50s that they make fun of on like Mystery Science Theater. Like that is as bad as that.
Yeah, they put all their stock into it and it failed. That movie flopped pretty bad. And they tried it, and then recently did a merger with Discovery. That's why it's called Warner Brothers Discovery now. That they merged with the Discovery Channel. So it seems like they've been
They've been
trying to,
talking about breaking that into two companies recently again too, because of how badly it's been going.
yeah, and it's just also losing because this article says Warner Brothers Discovery just lost its rights to broadcast the NBA beginning after next year. That's going to be also a huge revenue loss right there.
Huge. Yeah. And there
And
was the AT&T merger before the Discovery merger that also lost a ton of money.
yeah,
So there's two mergers back to back.
And it says, yeah, and the company is in fact suing the NBA to retain the rights, saying that it matched Amazon's offer for the NBA and that NBA isn't legally able to decline them if they match. So let's see how that happens there. See what that kind of going to happen. And all of it's kind of been under the leadership of David Zaslav, as I mentioned before. Probably the most hated CEO right now. Maybe I think him, Elon Musk, probably up there, probably two of the most hated
Jeff
CEOs.
Bezos.
Jeff Bezos
It's a
there.
nice little trinity you have right there.
Yeah. In fact, David Zaslav kind of looks like a Batman villain a little bit, kind of almost.
Yeah, he looks like Carmine Falcone.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely kind of has that look to him. There. What's kind of your take on the situation?
I mean, I think it's a mess. I think that for probably a number of different reasons, and I think the AT&T merger is where I feel like a lot of these news stories really started happening, and I'm sure it was going on behind the scenes even before that. But I think that they just made a lot of poor business decisions as far as what they want to put their money into. I mean, Justice League, right? Even before The Flash was a big flop, the Justice League movie was a big flop in theaters, and then the Snyder Cut, they had all to put all this money into that, and then that ended up not really being a big financial payoff. Um, stuff like the Suicide Squad game that came out earlier this year was like that lost them $200 million within like a month of release. And like they're still like trickling out DLC for that, but I guarantee as soon as they put out what's been promised, that they're walking away from that project. Um, and I mean that's another big element to this is during the AT&T merger days, there's a lot of talk about Warner Bros. AT&T was like, all right, we're going to sell off all our video game studios because we just need to make some money back. And then that ended up not happening. That's actually why we got two Mortal Kombat games in a row instead of going Mortal Kombat 11 and then Injustice 3. They decided, well, we don't know if we're gonna. The team at NetherRealm was like, we don't know if we're gonna have the rights to DC to make a DC game, to see this all actually come out. So let's just stick to Mortal Kombat. That's the license we actually know we have access to. So you ended up kind of messing with that game dev's cycle of development even. And then, but they ended up deciding, let's keep our game divisions. Let's not get rid of that. And then pretty much the moment that Suicide Squad came out, which of course is a live service game, which we're seeing tons of live service games bomb in general. It was not a good idea to do that in the first place, especially with Rocksteady, a studio that was famous for making the Batman Arkham trilogy, a series of popular single player games. And then the whole mantra David Zaslav was putting out there was like, well, everything's going to be live service. Suicide Squad's going to be live service. It's like, oh, is Hogwarts Legacy 2 going to be live service? Hopefully not. It just seemed like, is that Wonder Woman game that a Monolith is working on, is that going to have live service elements? Because the loot boxes in Shadow of War, second Lord of the Rings game, hurt that game a bit, right? The game got lambasted on social media for having loot boxes where you could get better orcs integrated into the game and had to grind for orc loot boxes. The whole thing is just stupid. And I mean, the video game side of it is only a small portion of just this just ridiculous series of just seemingly nonstop bad decision making. It's like every week these executives, Zaslav in particular, just change their mind, right? Suicide Squad flops. Oh, never mind. We do, after all, want to sell off all our game studios now again. And it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like anybody knows what they're doing over there. Like, I think Zaslav probably knows what he's doing when it comes to reality television. That's why he was at Discovery, right? He knows how to pump out content that is made for almost no money, for extremely cheap, to just go on reality TV like TLC and stuff like that. He probably knows how to manage that pretty well. I don't think he has any idea what he's doing when it comes to content that actually needs a budget to get made and be successful.
And you mentioned the video game, so this is another article here. Warner Brothers looking to sell off game division. Report claims Warner Brothers Discovery appears to be trying to get out of the games business, according to a new report from Financial Times. Warner Brothers is looking at the possibility of selling off at least part of its game division. The report comes just 2 weeks after Warner Brothers Games acquired multiverse developer Player First Games. The report claims that by selling off games, it would help the company avoid possible lawsuits from various debt investors. Nothing has been finalized, however. The Warner Brother currently owns major IPs like Harry Potter and Mortal Kombat. Do you know how well the Harry Potter Hogwarts? I think that game pretty sold pretty well, didn't it?
It was like the highest selling game that entire year.
Yeah.
Like it was up there. It did extremely well for them, which is like all the more it's like stop doing this live service bullshit. Just put a single player game out and let it do well. Clearly, that's what's actually selling.
Then also How did Mortal Kombat 1 do?
On the sales charts, it's actually doing pretty well. I know at like Evo, it's not necessarily like the most played game. And I know it's maybe doesn't have the greatest online servers, but even just like last month, I saw some financial reports, and it was in like the top 15 highest selling games like that month, and that's almost a year after release. So I think that's at least decently sold well.
I'm looking at it right here. So Mortal Kombat apparently has sold 3 million copies as of November 2023, and then
That's pretty good.
Hogwarts actually sold 22 million copies in 2023, despite
That's
lukewarm.
exceptional.
Yeah. And yeah, and it was when it comes to the best-selling video game each year. Yeah. So did really well there. And generated 850 million in global sales revenue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like an exceptionally well-selling game. It's just with this whole thing, I feel like Dr. Manhattan. It's like it's 2021 and Warner Brothers is considering selling off its games division. It's 2024 and Warner Brothers is considering selling off its games division. It's like we've been here, we've done this. They can't make up their mind on anything. They're even talking about rebranding Max back to being just HBO because they can't even stick to that decision.
Yeah. It's switched names, what, 4 times now? Switched names there.
Yeah, yeah. There was HBO Go, then there was HBO Now, then there was just HBO, then there was HBO Max. Now it's Max. Now they might go back to it being HBO. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Like,
And
how are you
so,
ever going to build a brand with people if you can't decide on what your brand is?
and with Hogwarts Legacy, so to finish the story here, as of May 5th, 2023, its revenue reached 1 billion, and by the beginning of 2024, global sales totaled 24 million copies. So it's a
That's like
billion.
Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption numbers right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big property for them. It's a huge property, and that's what you see a lot of them trying to do as far as a lot of their decisions when it comes to content is like they're gonna redo Harry Potter again in the TV show. They're gonna basically do that whole story again. They're trying to do more stuff with Lord of the Rings. I think they're trying to do another like trilogy there with Lord of the Rings again. Video games, they're trying to still pump stuff out of that because that's their big IP. Of course, they still
Yeah,
have superhero stuff with the DC stuff. Still trying to get that
that's an
going.
untapped mine for video games, honestly. Like they barely touched any of those characters.
In Lord of the Rings or in DC.
In DC. I mean, like, yeah, you've had a few kind of crappy movie tie-ins, and then you have the really great trilogy or quadrilogy of Batman games. But like, where's I mean, there's still never been a great Superman game to this day. Like, we not one time has that been something that's turned out well. How are you gonna not try and work on that?
Yeah. And the Suicide Squad game could have been a cool game if you
Could
didn't
have
have
been.
all the bullshit. I haven't played the game, but from people they said the story's pretty funny. It's like a good Suicide Squad story. Just the gameplay every time it turns to the gameplay, it kind of sucks there. With that, and then the Wonder Woman game, it was some great people kind of working on the Wonder Woman game.
Yeah, it's
Who
Monolith who did the Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War games, which I really loved those Lord of the Rings games. I think they're great. Like, yes, the second one, it had some of that loot box stuff, but they had also patched it out very quickly because people complained. And so, like, if you play that game, you play that sequel today, you're not going to deal with any of that. It's all been removed. Um, So like I think those are two very strong games, and that's the team making the Wonder Woman game. I just pray that they're not forcing live service elements into that.
Yeah. And to go back to the IndieWire article here, that could also explain some of the troubles that Warner Brothers has been having here. It says Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav said on Wednesday earnings call that market valuations 2 years ago, when they first merged in April 2022, were quite different than they are today. Are quite different than they are today. In doing this, acknowledge that change in value and better aligns them with their goals moving forward. Chief Financial Officer Gunnar Winfield said he's not dismissive of the magnitude of the impairment, but this represents the value shift toward streaming, and with the company still believes has strong momentum. That's also another thing. All the streaming, everybody's trying to have an app. Everybody trying to have a streaming service. After Netflix kind of set that trend,
Yeah.
everybody wants to do it. Disney did it. Max did it. I mean, Warner Bros. Had theirs already because they had Go. That was around for a long time.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, and that was like you had to have a cable subscription, all like, and then like the HBO Max, or just like their actual on cable HBO extension already to use HBO Go.
yeah,
But yeah, it did exist for quite some time before any of these others.
that exists, but everybody's trying to do it. Is this streaming method? I mean, it's been talked about. How profitable is it? I mean, we always hear Netflix is always in debt. How much they owe?
It seems like it's not. I mean, Microsoft with Game Pass, right, is also, you know, because the new signups for it taper off at a certain point in time, and so much of the profitability of streaming services, whether it's Game Pass or HBO or Netflix, any of these, it seems like their revenue primarily depends on getting new subscriptions every single month, getting brand new subscribers every single year. And at a certain point, it's like there's only so many people on Earth, and there's only so many of those people are going to sign up for these things. You can't expect infinite growth. And at a certain point, these things hit a wall, they taper off. Maybe they have little rises and they come down and go up a little bit, but there's just they lose this surge factor. And it seems like as soon as that surge factor's gone, they just become unprofitable, like across the board.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And when Disney, I mean, they made their streaming service, it was about, okay, that's how you get all these Star Wars shows and all these Marvel shows. Like, we need to create content to draw people to this platform because we
Yeah.
spend a lot of money designing this streaming service. So we got to bring a lot of people in here to subscribe, and okay, we got to bring out the big properties that everybody loves and knows. That's the same thing with, and then Disney's actually raising their prices again. They've flip flop back and forth in prices. Now they're raising it. Before with ads, it was $7.99. Now they're going to bring it up to $10 there. With
How
even
many
with
times have you read about Netflix doing that?
Netflix doing that, changing the prices, you couldn't. They said they were cracking down on sharing the password and all that, so people couldn't share accounts. Now they're talking about they're doing a bundle stuff. It's like, oh, well, you can bundle these three together. You can get Disney and Hulu and HBO Max and get them all together for the good price of $17.99 and do all that.
Like, oh, so I'm getting cable again.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
much.
mean, it's basically just cable again, basically. So, is it a profitable method for these companies to do streaming services? I don't know if it's that really profitable for them to
It
really
doesn't
do it.
seem like it. It seems like maybe in the short term, because again, you get when it's brand new signups, but as soon as that goes away, it just doesn't seem like it works.
Yeah, because
Game Pass also just raised its prices, so
yeah. So I mean, it's good if there's some people who stick around, sure, but like I said, there's only so many people. There's only so many people who want to stick around, and subscribe, and it's like, some people may think like, well, what am I really even watching on here? Like, if I'm not watching the new thing that just came out, like I'm not really using it, so I might as well just cancel it. So it's like, yeah, you can't just create. I mean, I get they're trying to meet that demand of constantly trying to serve people with new content all the time, but you just can't always meet that hunger and that demand. And Warner Brothers, I mean, where they're going to go off from here, I don't know if as far as happening here, can they recover from this? Can they kind of bounce back from this? It seems kind of hard to imagine at this point. And then this is the last bit of the article here. This in the why. Let me share it here. It says since Warner Brothers Discovery formed a merged company a little over 2 years ago in April 2022, the company's stock has fallen nearly 70%. The company's stock fell another 8% in the after hours trading and is now approaching an all-time low. Late last month, a report came out of Warner Bros. Discovery was exploring a potential spinoff of its film and TV studio and streaming from its linear TV channels. Much as Warner Bros. Discovery's $40 billion in debt lies with the linear channels, so a divorce would free up the studio to segment to unlock more value, but it also comes with major risks, with some analysts completely doubting it. The company cut another 1,000 jobs in July, primarily across finance, business affairs, and production divisions. Um, there, so trying to trim the fat there. Um, yeah, I mean, you think they're also going to sell off probably some of the DC stuff? Probably a lot of that characters.
Well, I mean, I in just these some of these articles in this last week, I did see them say, like alongside the game division, consideration for selling off DC, just like wholesale as a property. Like, hey, we just get it out of here. We need to sell things. We need to somehow survive and make up this money. I don't know that that's ac actually going to happen, but like if they get desperate enough and just to keep the company alive and not be in debt, maybe it will. Um, I I mean, I really think Warner Brothers is going to go on the shelf with Fox and just be a movie studio that we fondly remember for its glory days in like another 5 to 10 years. It's just going to be something we reminisce about, but I don't think it's going to be around for that much longer. Or it'll
Mm,
be something else. I mean, I have a friend of mine. He's one of the co-hosts on my stream on Tuesdays, and he's a little bit more business minded than I am. He actually went to college and for business school and stuff, and he has been talking for a long time about how it looks like with how much they cut and sell and try and ship off and cancel for tax write-offs, and he thinks that maybe they're just trying to create a scenario in which the company becomes small enough that it can then be bought up by someone else, Universal slash Comcast probably being a big name
mm,
in that bidding battle.
yeah. I mean, what kind of little smaller companies are kind of left there to be just eaten up by the big one? You got Disney already, that's already eaten up 20th Century Fox already, and they've eaten up
Yeah, they already
them.
filled their Infinity Gauntlet of studios out.
Studios there. What was the other one they got?
They bought Pixar first, then they bought Marvel, then they bought
Yes,
Lucasfilm, then they bought Fox. So
they got that. Paramount. I think there was talks of Paramount merging with. And that kind of fell out. I think. Who was Paramount about to merge with? It was. Dang, let me
would that maybe Universal?
I think, it was Paramount agrees to merge with Skydance. I think maybe that one was with,
Okay, I think Skydance is the smaller one in that scenario.
yeah, Skydance there. So, yeah, we see Paramount, Global, they see what they kinda do. Yeah, a merger of Skydance and everything like that. So they were planning on maybe trying to do a merger, then that kinda backed away there. So you see how these companies trying to merge together basically, and then it's these super companies gonna get built, and a lot of these little companies kinda get eaten up there. But yeah, I
Welcome to
mean
Blade Runner.
And you see that, I mean, Warner Bros. Yeah, maybe that is a situation. Maybe they're trying to sell off all their assets, look good for some other person to come in and kind of get them. I mean, they have a lot of great property. I mean, Harry Potter, the Lord of the Rings stuff they got the DC stuff, they got Dune. They have what's another big property that Warner Brothers owns there?
Um, I mean,
Uh,
God, they definitely have a lot, but as far as like big mega properties go, Mad Max, granted, that didn't exactly do super well at the box office this year. So,
Looney Tunes, they got a lot of
oh yeah,
that.
Looney Tunes is classic.
You know,
I mean,
it says
Animaniacs, I guess I mean, maybe that's not a huge mega property, but
It's so here is top 10 Warner Brothers franchises. So of course Harry Potter. It says movies alone that's 34.5 billion. Oh no, collectively it's 34.5 as worth of Harry Potter, and then movies alone are 9 plus billion. Then there's Batman, which is 29 points, just Batman by himself, 29.6
it's
billion.
not even DC, it's just Batman.
Just Looney Tunes at 15.9 billion. Has collectively it's kind of made for them. Ben 10 is wow, Ben 10.
Oh,
Okay.
I didn't know that was that big.
7.85 billion. The whole DC extended universe, 7.63 billion. Superman, 6.9 billion. Middle Earth, the whole Lord of the Rings stuff at 6.84 billion. Mortal Kombat, 5 billion. Scooby
Oh, you're
Doo,
right. Oh
4
wow, I can't believe I couldn't think of Scooby Doo.
Scooby Doo, and then Big Bang Theory comes in 10 at 4.57 billion. Is worth there, or how
Wow.
much it's made there for them. So they've got a lot of good stuff they can kind of sell, yeah, sell there. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we'll kind of see there. Keep you all updated with what's going on with Runner Brothers. Yeah. So that was the news heading out of here. Thank you, Sage, for joining me, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
One more time, let people know they can find what you got going on, what you got coming up next.
Yeah, you can find me over at Rated M for Immaturity on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, all under the same name. We just started streaming Gollum yesterday with a masterpiece of 2023.
I think
Having fun roasting that. Been the game might not be good on its own, but I think we found a lot of entertainment to create with it. Alongside regular streams at 2:30 p.m. CST Tuesdays, uh, 10:30 p.m. CST Saturdays, 7 CST every other Friday. And then you get some occasional bonus streams in between.
Yeah. Well, you helped out Warner Brothers. You gave them $5 for the Gollum game. You helped them out.
I waited until I only had to give them. I think of it as I paid $5 to watch my co-host's facial expression while he suffered playing the game. That's where the $5 really went.
All right, people. You can find us on all the social medias: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Sky, all the afternoon tune. Just type that in and you'll be able to find us. If you want to send us an email, you can do so at theafternoon@gmail.com. We also wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you see us on any of those platforms, make sure to leave a good 5-star review that helps boost the podcast. It does a lot for us there. Usually streaming on Twitch.tv every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, sometimes Wednesday there, usually 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Trying to get to 600 followers on Twitch. That'd be awesome if we could do that. YouTube, we post up clips, discussions, reviews, all the good stuff there from the streams. That's youtube.com. The afternoon tune. Try to get to 2K by the end of this year. To be awesome if we could do that. Thank you to Cal for showing up. Thank you to Rampage for showing up there. I'm going to be heading out and raiding a cat named Whitney. Great streamer there. I'm going to be back streaming with Dusk. We're going to be reviewing Borderlands. We're going to be reviewing that. Who's coming out with Borderlands? Who's doing that movie?
That's a great question. I
Lionsgate.
don't know.
Lionsgate.
Oh, okay.
Lionsgate is doing that. So I don't know. Well, they do got that little girl in it. I mean, every movie she's been in has been successful, pretty much.
That's true.
Maybe
Maybe they use that as some sort of
Lucky Charm.
positive magic. Yeah.
Yeah, she was in Barbie that made $1 billion. She was in what else? I think she was in another. Oh, she was in
War.
Infinity War that made $1 billion. So I don't know. Maybe she can rub off some of that luck on this movie. Maybe Borderlands is gonna make $1 billion. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I would be shocked.
Yeah, man.
I heard Kate Blanchett only signed on to be in that movie because she was just going nuts during lockdown during the pandemic and just was like, I just need to do something.
Wow.
And she just said yes to it because it was like it's a job. I just have to go do something. So,
Oh. I mean, she's usually pretty busy though. I can't believe she's usually pretty busy. I mean, yeah.
it was right near the beginning of the lockdown when it was just like everything was halted and jobs weren't really lining up for anybody for a little bit, and it was just in the middle of that. She was like, "Yes, I'll say yes to anything."
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll see. Maybe she'll be the best thing about it. I do love Kate Blanchett.
I like her a lot, so I think that's not unlikely.
And then also, Cuckoo doing a review for that Friday. So it'll be a late stream there because I'm seeing Cuckoo that Friday in the evening. So probably do 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's when the stream will start for that. Saturday, I don't have any stream planned as of yet. Sunday, going to be joined by Mike Hedgewood. Maybe try to do One Piece. But I'm also going to be hopping on his stream. Going to be reviewing the Planet of the Apes movies, the recent films there from the franchise. That'd be awesome to talk about those movies. But yeah, let me pull up my raid screen here and go ahead and raid a cat named Whitney here. Sage, hopefully Sage can join me Monday. We can finish off the other arc of Hunter x Hunter. Do you have any other video game reviews you have to do Monday?
I've got a couple more written down. I think pretty much only retro review stuff though, nothing new.
Okay. All right. Countdown to Black Myth always continues there to that game. And all right,
See how
people,
fast I can finish it.
stay tuned. All right.